Hey y'all, it's Keylonda, and this is my 2018 brow routine featuring the e.l.f. Lock On Liner and Brow Cream. I'm just grooming my brows at this point. I like to use this eyebrow razor that I get from my local beauty supply store and just clean up the stray hairs underneath the arch in order to make for a really clean look to my brows. I just really focus on the tail area, and then ever so often I may have to brush up the front hairs and give them a clip with some scissors. So I'm just brushing through those and cleaning up the stray hairs underneath, and also doing the same to the other side really quickly. Then I use some micellar water to wipe through the brows and groom them back into place again. So this is what the e.l.f. Lock On Liner and Brow Cream looks like. I use the Espresso color, which is about the darkest brown you will get. And I'm using the Ruby Kisses brow brush. It has a small synthetic angled brush on one end and a brow spoolie brush on the other end, so it's perfect for this. So that's one aspect of my routine that has changed. I take the brush and make sure that product is on each side in order to help the brush to be as thin as I want, so that I can make this small thin line underneath my brow. And this just helps to make sure that as I'm following along with the concealer in the later step, that I don't get into the brow hairs, which makes your brows look kind of furry, unless you're going for the furry look, which is in right now. So I just went underneath, and then I like to make sure that I've got some decent measurements on my brow. So that's how you tell where the tail, the arch, and the front of the brow should be, using those markers. And then I like to brush the hairs downward in order to make sure that when I make my line across the top, that that line doesn't go too high up and cause me to have thicker brows than what I already have. So this is a good tip that I got from Queenie Rosenblatt. She has, pretty full brows, and so she would brush her hairs downward in order to fill in that top portion in one of her brow routines, and it really works for me. So I'm just making that top line meet the bottom one and just getting it to the thickness that I would like to have. And I'm constantly going back in, just running that brush across my hand in order to make sure that it continues to be thin. I don't want it to expand and start to make strokes that are just too wide, where they don't really mimic what hair looks like. So that's what I like to do. And then I'm brushing those brow hairs back into place, so that way I can see where they look sparse and go ahead and start filling in. Now in the front portion, I don't go all the way to the beginning of the brow. I start a little bit after that and then work my way to the front. And you can see that I'm taking that angle brush and I'm going upward at the beginning of the brow, and then horizontally in the middle of the brow, and then at the tail I work my way downward, because that's the direction that I would like those eyebrow hairs to be in place. So upward at the beginning, horizontal in the middle, and angling downward at the tail. And I'm making small strokes in order to mimic hair as much as possible, and then using the spoolie end to sort of blend that product through, get those hairs into place so that I can see where I need to fill in more or sculpt more. And as you can see, if you are really trying to make your brows nice and neat, then you just have to take your time with this, and you'll get faster once you establish what type of routine you want to have. And when I go to fill in that front portion, you can see I turn the brush where it's basically vertical, and I'm just moving upward motions. And then when I'm going to the tail, like I said, is angling sort of downward to mimic how I want the hairs to be. Okay. And it's one of those things you just have to get to the point where you feel like it's acceptable and you can work with it and then move on. So here I'm just going to quickly show me doing the other brow. It's always, a different task for each brow, just because no two brows are the same, even the ones that are on the same face. So you just have to, take your time, work with them, and get them as close as possible to looking like they belong on the same face. Okay. So I made a line underneath, a line on top, and began filling in the tail of my brow and using the spoolie to brush through. Now I'm taking the Colourpop No Filter Concealer. This is in Deep Golden, and I'm just using the wand straight out of the concealer, putting it underneath my brows, not too close to the actual brow. I'm going to use this small angle brush to work my way up to that line that I created underneath the brow. This brush, I got it from Marshall's in a set of eye brushes. I think there was like a spoolie, this angled brush, a flat sort of concealer brush, and maybe that's it. Maybe it was 3 brushes. But either way, I got them from Marshall's in a set. And it's a little bit bigger than the one that I used to fill in the brows, but not too large to where I can't get in the small little curves of the arches in my eyebrow. And as I said, I just make my way up closer and closer to the actual brow. And I'm doing the same thing to the other side. And as you can see, when I feel like it's necessary, I may gently lift the skin in order to get into those spaces that I need to. And I'm using the Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush just to blend out some of that concealer. And then using a patting motion with my fingertips in order to blend it out on the edge. Now I'm mixing those 2 concealers. That's Glamoflauge Heavy Duty Concealer in Clove, and NYX Got You Covered Concealer in Deep Caramel. And I mix those 2 because the Glamoflauge is a little too orange, and the NYX Deep Caramel is really about the right color, but they both give me some nice coverage if I want to do this step of concealing above the brow. And it's a little bit of a deeper shade than the Colourpop No Filter, so it makes it easier to blend this out in the step of my complexion makeup when I'm blending out my foundation. So I just take my time using the same technique, starting higher and then working my way closer to the actual brow, and then blending out with that Real Techniques brush. Now, of course, all of these steps are optional. You can choose to just sculpt the brow, fill it in, conceal underneath the brow, or do all of them plus conceal over the top of the brow. It just kind of depends on what you want to go for, okay? Another added step that you can do just to top off the look is to go in with some brow mascara or brow gel. I'm using the NYX or NYX Tinted Brow Mascara in Espresso. And to me, it just helps to take away a little bit of the harshness that the brow cream can leave. So let me know which brow style you would prefer. Just the brow that's filled in, or the one that's concealed underneath and above. All right, sugars, I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.